I'm AJ Chaudhry. I'm a co-author of a book, Cradle to Kindergarten, a new plan to combat inequality. It offers a policy plan for the US for ECE that would address large levels of inequality among young children. After our book was published, we have worked with states, including Oregon, to similarly analyze the level of unmet needs, inequalities in access and quality, and to early care and education, and the policy provisions that exist in the state in order to develop potential state policy plans and cost estimates for a comprehensive early childhood program. I want to acknowledge my co-authors for the book, Hirokazu Yoshikawa, Christina Weiland, and Tara Morrissey, and both Doctors Weiland and Morrissey for their joint work on developing the Oregon plan. I want to thank OSU and the team that organized the Family Impact Seminar and for the invitation to this important event, and acknowledge the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who supported and funded the development of the work we did with Oregon, and finally the guidance and input of the state's leadership, many experts and advocates in the development of our plan. And today I will be primarily presenting what the plan we've developed with their input. Great. To start off, inequality in America and Oregon begins before birth, and it quickly worsens over early childhood. So there's about 45,000 children born annually in Oregon, but Oregon's young children start life in a wide range of circumstances, economic and otherwise. This figure on the left shows that 1 in 5 are living in poverty. And remember, poverty is measured, it's a very low bar for income. It's $21,000 a year for a family of 3. 2 out of 5 are poor or near poor, low-income families. When you go further around clockwise, about 31% make between 200% or 400% of the federal poverty level. That's about $50,000 to $100,000 per year. And then at the very top end, going clockwise, you have about 30% of families who with incomes above 100,000. So many children are economically disadvantaged from day one of their lives, and there are many other families who are just in average circumstances, the third and fourth slices of the pie, who also may not have the resources to access affordable, high-quality care and development opportunities, in part because, as Dr. Davis said, it's a labor-intensive need that costs a lot relative to most families' incomes. The other thing to note, and this is what the figure on the right intends to show, is that these economic and other disadvantages are not distributed evenly. They are embedded and entrenched within racial and ethnic disparities families face that have long historical roots that precedes this nation's or Oregon's founding, as Dr. Aruka clearly pointed out. Oregon's youngest children are increasingly from diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds, and that's been increasing with time. And here you see that Hispanic, Black, and Indigenous American children in Oregon experience poverty at more than double the rate of white children in Oregon. As an aside, in 1989, I worked at the National Center for Children in Poverty, and we developed a look at young children's poverty and published a report. And I went back to look at that last night, and the overall poverty rate, child poverty rate for children in Oregon has not changed, and the ratio between the poverty levels of Hispanic and African American children compared to white children has declined by only 5%. So why is this important? Well, the prenatal, as both Drs. Aruka and Davis pointed out, we know from the science of child development that the first 3 years are the most critical period for human development. And that, in fact, inequalities widen in terms of skill and capacity development during these years, as well as for several early childhood outcomes in a way that is greater than in any other period of human development. Children in low-income families become deeply disadvantaged in their school readiness by kindergarten entry. And almost all of that disparity then carries through K-12 education. But nearly all of that is there on the first day they start kindergarten. Disparities, though, however, are not intractable. In fact, children gain a lot through experience, through what they're able to experience. And high-quality early education programs have been found repeatedly to narrow the differences in developmental outcomes for Black and Latino and low-income children. The children who have the least access to quality programs are the very ones who make the largest gains from this exposure, if they have the chance, but most don't. We can turn early childhood into a profound equalizing moment, rather than one that entrenches inequality if we make the right investments. So what are those investments? So again, working together with the state's leadership on we developed a plan. Today I'm going to talk about two components of that plan. There are others that would create a birth to five infrastructure across systems that would take elements that exist, the complexity that Dr. Davis showed, but make sense of it and make it coherent and make the elements work together. The two key pieces we'll talk about today is a guarantee of childcare assistance that assures all children who need it access to affordable, stable, quality care and learning settings, and beginning universal early education at age 3, or just education starts at 3. And these are actually built upon some momentum and a broader infrastructure of investments. So Oregon has made in its children and families. For example, last year it passed a paid parental leave legislation that will bring to Oregon one of the most generous programs, and it's going to go online in a couple of years, and as well as making landmark investments in education through the Student Success Act that includes a significant share for preschool. Okay, so the lack of affordable childcare in Oregon. There is only capacity, licensed capacity, for 1 out of 8 infants and toddlers. This is despite the fact that 64% of parents have all their parents working at those ages and need some kind of childcare. So the most they could ever be in licensed facilities is 1 out of 5 infants and toddlers whose parents are working. The childcare subsidy program serves just a sliver of the eligible children in low-income families. And finally, there are aspects of the parameters of the state's program that limit its capacity to meet the needs, even through capped funding that exists. So one of those that I'll just highlight today is that the copayment schedule serves as a major barrier to even eligible families. The copays are actually waived right now as a part of the efforts in the pandemic. And it's a great opportunity to see what its effects on access are, what its effects, how many parents learn about this. And a good chance that this policy, or one that limits payments to less than 7% of families' income, should be the overall policy post-pandemic. So as I said, Oregon only serves 13%, or 1 out of 8, of children in licensed settings. This is lower than the national average, which is around 20%, and puts Oregon in the bottom 5th of infant toddler capacity in the country. As I indicated, Oregon only serves 1 in 9 children who are eligible under federal guidelines, up to 85% of state median income, and that share has been declining, or the number of children has been declining by almost 40% since 2000. And then, as I said, the copayment structure. Well, the copayment structure that exists in Oregon prioritizes those who make the least, which is understandable, but it also means that families who make a little bit more lose their benefits or can no longer afford their childcare. and that many families who are eligible and poor, just above poverty, the program is not worth their participation because they can't afford it. Even though the cost is being brought down significantly, it's still not open to them. So as you can see in this figure, 45%, which is a large percentage given the circumstances and needs within that age group of eligible families who make between 12 and 24,000 a year are participating. As soon as you get above that, it starts to decline.